The Galactic Council had monitored primitive species for millennia, cataloging their rise and fall with the dispassionate precision of scientists studying insects. But humans were different from the very beginning, though none of the council members could articulate exactly how. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel in 2387, their crude Alcubierre drives leaving energy signatures that blazed across council sensor networks like a newborn star, the decision was unanimous. The council dispatched their finest xenobiologist, Dr. Zara Velkoth of the Arxilian Empire, to establish first contact protocols and begin the standard evaluation process. Zara's first report to the council chambers on Nexus Prime was delivered with characteristic Arxilian precision. Her elongated, crystalline form shimmered in the chamber's pale light as holographic data streams cascaded around her translucent body. Initial assessment confirms standard class 7 carbon-based intelligence. She began, her harmonic voice resonating through 17 different translation matrices. However, subjects display remarkable adaptive capabilities exceeding baseline parameters by 340%. Tool users highly social and surprisingly resilient. Archaeological scans indicate they've survived multiple extinction-level events on their homeworld: asteroid impacts, volcanic superactivity, ice ages, and at least 3 near-total ecosystem collapses. High Counselor Thane 9, a gaseous entity from the void reaches whose form shifted between states of matter like liquid thought, pulsed with growing curiosity. His voice, when it came, was the sound of solar wind through nebulae. Military capabilities? Weapons technology. Primitive but ingenious, Zara replied, manipulating the holographic displays with precise movements of her crystalline appendages. They've progressed from chemical explosives to plasma-based energy systems in less than 2 centuries. Nothing approaching our graviton disruptors or quantum dissolution arrays, but their development curve is steep. She paused, optical sensors dimming as she processed complex calculations. They call their species human. Etymology traces to ancient linguistic roots meaning of the earth or from the soil. Counselor Vex, his reptilian bulk coiled in the lower observation gallery, hissed softly. Standard psychological profile? That's where it becomes interesting. Zara's form flickered with what her species might have called uncertainty. Preliminary scans suggest extreme pack-bonding behaviors. They form attachments not just to their immediate genetic clusters, but to abstract concepts, nations, ideologies, even fictional constructs. Most remarkably, they demonstrate consistent willingness to sacrifice individual survival for group benefit, even when the group extends beyond immediate family units. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled. Most galactic species prioritized individual survival above all else, a logical evolutionary imperative. The few exceptions were hive minds or gestalt consciousnesses where individual identity was already subsumed. Dr. Mirren Blackwood, the Council's military analyst, unfurled her forearms from her meditation pose. Her compound eyes, each containing thousands of individual lenses, focused on the data streams with predatory intensity. Have they encountered other sapient species? Negative. They remain convinced they are alone in the universe, despite statistical models proving otherwise. This isolation has created several unique philosophical frameworks, something they call human exceptionalism and, paradoxically, cosmic loneliness. Zara's optical array shifted to a new data cluster. Most intriguing is their approach to theoretical scenarios involving alien contact. Popular fiction consistently depicts them either as conquerors or the conquered, with few middle ground scenarios. The Council voted unanimously. Humanity would be granted provisional membership status. Standard protocol dictated a century-long observation period before full integration into galactic society. They would be watched, studied, and eventually guided into their proper place within the cosmic hierarchy. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez became Earth's first representative, her dark eyes bright with wonder as she stepped aboard the Council observation station orbiting Neptune. She was young for a diplomat, barely 40, but her quick mind and natural charisma had impressed even the most xenophobic council members. Her first words to the assembled observers would later be recorded in the Council archives as historically significant. "We're honored by this opportunity," Elena said, her translator device rendering her words in 17 different formats simultaneously. "Humanity has dreamed of this moment for generations. We've always wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're part of something far greater than ourselves." What none of them knew, not the Council observers with their millennia of experience, not Ambassador Rodriguez with her careful diplomatic training, not even the sophisticated predictive algorithms running on Nexus Prime, was that humanity's first real test was already approaching from the rim systems. In the cold darkness between stars, something ancient and hungry had detected the energy signatures of a new species. The Devourers were coming. The Devourers came without warning, as they always did. Their biomechanical ships, vast organic nightmares that had been grown in the depths of space rather than built in shipyards, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system like a plague of mechanical locusts. The distortion wave of their arrival sent ripples through local spacetime that triggered every Council monitoring station within 12 light-years. Humanity's first successful colony world beyond their solar system, Kepler 442b, hung in space like a blue-green jewel, completely unaware of the death approaching from the void. 3 million human colonists lived there, having spent over 50 years terraforming what had once been a barren rock into a world of rolling plains and shallow seas. In the Council observation station orbiting Neptune, emergency klaxons wailed as sensor data flooded in. Dr. Mirren Blackwood's 4 arms moved with fluid precision across holographic displays while her compound eyes tracked multiple data streams simultaneously. Each lens in her eyes processed different spectrums of information: thermal, gravitational, quantum resonance patterns, bioelectrical signatures. Classification confirmed: Devourer Swarm, approximately 247 individual bioships, she reported, her voice carrying the clinical detachment of someone who had witnessed this tragedy countless times before. Mass displacement suggests Harvester-class vessels with full consumption protocols. Standard Devourer operational pattern detected. The bioships moved with predatory grace through space, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and intimidation. These were not machines of war. They were evolution-weaponized, apex predators that had consumed entire star systems and left nothing but drifting debris in their wake. Estimated timeline? High Counselor Thane IX's gaseous form swirled with colors that indicated deep concern. In his 3,000 years of existence, he had witnessed 47 species make first contact with the Devourers. None had survived without Council intervention. Based on current approach vectors and deceleration patterns, first harvest pods will make planetfall in 72 hours. Dr. Blackwood replied, her analysis appearing as three-dimensional projections that rotated slowly in the observation chamber. They'll consume all organic matter first, the population, all plant life, atmospheric microorganisms. Then they'll begin deep-core mining operations for rare elements. Complete planetary consumption. Estimated 14 standard days. The Council had witnessed this scenario so many times it had become routine. Young species would establish their first colonies, venture beyond their home systems with the naive confidence of those who had never met a true predator. Then the Devourers would arrive, and reality would assert itself with brutal efficiency. The galaxy's oldest law would be upheld once again. The strong consumed the weak, and survival belonged only to those wise enough to accept protection. Counselor Vex uncoiled his massive reptilian form from the lower observation gallery, his ancient scales clicking against the crystalline floor. Shall we prepare the standard refugee relocation protocol? The Andromeda Reserve has space for approximately 4 million displaced persons. Dr. Zara Velkatha's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. Perhaps we should evaluate their response first. The psychological profiles suggest they may react unpredictably. High Counselor Thane IX pulsed thoughtfully, his gaseous body shifting through spectrums of light as he weighed options that had been considered and reconsidered for millennia. Send the offer, but observe their response carefully. Their reaction will determine not only their survival, but their final classification in Council records. The transmission was sent through quantum-encrypted channels to Earth's government, its wording polite but carrying the weight of cosmic law. The Galactic Council offers immediate evacuation for all human colonies currently under devourer threat. Accept our protection, and humanity will be granted safe harbor status with full relocation assistance to Council-protected worlds. Refuse, and you face the consequences alone. On Earth, in the emergency session chambers of the United Earth Assembly, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood before representatives from every nation and colony. Her diplomatic training had prepared her for many scenarios, but nothing quite like this. Her face was grim as she read the Council's message aloud. Her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was announcing. Members of the Assembly, we have 6 hours to respond to the Council's ultimatum. Their offer is generous by their standards. They'll evacuate all 3 million colonists from Kepler 442b, relocate them to protected worlds within Council space, provide them with technology and resources to rebuild their lives. General Marcus Thompson, Earth's defense coordinator, leaned forward in his seat. A career military officer who had spent decades preparing for theoretical alien conflicts, he now faced the first real test of humanity's resolve. At what cost, Ambassador? Elena's voice carried the weight of history as she explained the price of survival. Permanent dependency. We become a client species under Council administration. Our colonies will be managed by their bureaucrats. Our expansion into space will be limited to designated zones under their supervision. Our military development will be restricted to Council-approved technologies. She paused, meeting the eyes of every representative in the chamber. We'll be safe, but we'll never be free. The debate that followed lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. When the final vote was tallied, the result shocked even Elena Rodriguez. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would stand alone. Council observers expected panic. Their millennia of experience with emerging species had taught them the predictable patterns of civilizations facing extinction. Desperate last-minute evacuation attempts, futile defensive posturing around their homeworld, or perhaps a token resistance force sent to die gloriously while evacuation ships fled to safety. They did not expect what actually happened. Within 18 hours of refusing Council protection, a response time that defied every logistical model in the Council archives, humanity's response fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. 47 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh battle paint and modification scars that spoke of frantic preparation. The lead vessel, the battlecruiser UES Defiance, was humanity's newest warship, commissioned barely 3 months earlier. But surrounding her were vessels that made Council observers exchange glances of disbelief. Converted cargo haulers bristling with improvised weapon mounts, passenger liners retrofitted with military shields, even a few mining ships whose industrial cutting lasers had been reconfigured for combat. Dr. Mirren Blackwood's compound eyes focused on the tactical display with predatory intensity, her 4 arms dancing across holographic controls as she analyzed the impossible fleet before them. Fascinating. They've mobilized everything capable of hyperspace travel. That cargo vessel, the UES Mumbai, was delivering agricultural supplies to the Centauri colonies yesterday. Now it's mounting plasma cannons. Dr. Zara Velkatha's crystalline form flickered with something approaching admiration. The temporal logistics alone, they would have had to coordinate fleet movements across 3 star systems, strip weapons from planetary defenses, convert civilian vessels to military specifications, and train crews, all in less than 20 hours. High Counselor Thane Nine's gaseous form swirled with colors that indicated deep confusion. Are they attempting some form of delaying action? A heroic sacrifice to buy time for evacuation? Negative, Dr. Blackwood replied, her analysis scrolling across multiple displays. No evacuation ships detected. No refugee convoys. Every hyperspace-capable vessel in their fleet appears to be converted for military action. I calculate a 97.3% probability of complete human fleet destruction within the first 4 hours of engagement. The Devourer swarm, over 200 bioships each the size of a city block, barely acknowledged the human presence. Their attention remained focused on the blue-green world below, where preliminary consumption had already begun. Atmospheric processors descended through the upper atmosphere like metallic rain, beginning the systematic conversion of breathable air into the nutrient slurry the Devourers required. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Captain Sarah Mitchell stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her brown eyes studying the tactical display with the calm intensity of someone who had accepted the impossible. At 34, she was the youngest fleet commander in human history, promoted through 3 ranks in the past 6 months as humanity prepared for conflicts they hoped would never come. "Captain," her tactical officer called out, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Devourer swarm is maintaining consumption pattern. No response to our presence." "They don't consider us a threat," Mitchell replied quietly. "Let's change that. All ships, this is command." Her voice carried across 47 ships and over 20,000 human souls. Volunteers all, who had known the odds and come anyway. "We know what we're facing. We know the mathematics of this engagement. But those are our people down there, and those numbers don't account for one variable." She paused, her voice strengthening as it reached every human ear in the fleet. "We didn't come this far, didn't build these ships, didn't leave our cradle world behind, just to abandon our own when things got difficult. Mathematics be damned. All ships weapons free. Show them what humans do when cornered." The first human volley erupted across space like a constellation of angry stars. Concentrated plasma fire, primitive by Council standards but focused with tactical precision that surprised the observers, lanced out toward the largest Devourer bioships. The energy beams, augmented by targeting computers running calculations that pushed human technology to its absolute limits, burned through bioarmor that should have been impervious to such basic weaponry. Council observers noted with growing surprise that human weapons were demonstrably more effective than their theoretical models predicted. But it wasn't the unexpected effectiveness of their armaments that truly shocked the watching aliens. It was what happened next. When the Devourer swarm finally turned their attention from the planet to deal with this annoying distraction, they expected the standard response that had served the galaxy for millennia. Formation collapse as discipline broke down, individual ships attempting to retreat to save themselves, eventual surrender as reality asserted itself. Instead, something unprecedented occurred in the recorded history of galactic warfare. The human ships moved closer to the enemy. "They're doing what?" High Counselor Thane Nine's gaseous form roiled with confusion, shifting through spectrums of disbelief as he reviewed the battle data streaming in from the Kepler system. In his 3 millennia of existence, he had witnessed countless species face the Devourers. None had ever done anything remotely resembling what he was seeing now. Dr. Blackwood's 4 arms moved frantically across her holographic displays, her compound eyes processing multiple data streams simultaneously as she struggled to categorize behavior that defied every tactical doctrine in the Council archives. They're clustering into defensive formations around their damaged vessels. When a ship takes critical damage, others move to shield it while rescue operations commence. Her voice carried a note of scientific fascination mixed with dawning horror. "And they're ramming." On the primary tactical display, the UES Harmony, a converted colony transport that had been carrying farming equipment to the outer colonies just days earlier, had taken a direct hit from a Devourer biolance. Her hull was breached in 17 places, atmosphere bleeding into space like luminous fog. By every standard military doctrine in galactic history, her crew should have abandoned ship immediately. Instead, something impossible happened. Captain Elena Vasquez sealed the bridge blast doors and rerouted all remaining power to engines and inertial dampeners. Her final transmission, intercepted by Council monitoring systems, would later be studied by xenopsychologists across the galaxy. "This is Harmony to all ships. We're done for, but we're taking one of these bastards with us. Tell Earth we remembered what it means to die free." The dying colony ship, her hull glowing cherry red from internal fires, accelerated directly toward the largest Devourer bioship in the enemy formation. Her crew, farmers, engineers, teachers who had volunteered for this impossible mission, remained at their posts as their vessel became a guided missile of human determination. Both ships died in a flash of violent light that briefly outshone Kepler's distant sun. "Unprecedented," whispered Dr. Zara Velkoff, her crystalline form flickering with calculations that produced results she couldn't accept. In 14,000 years of devourer encounters, no species has ever attempted ramming attacks. The psychological profile required for such an action. She trailed off, her optical sensors dimming as she tried to process the implications. But the ramming attack was only the beginning of humanity's tactical revolution. Council observers watched in fascination and growing alarm as the human fleet rewrote the fundamental principles of space combat. When the destroyer UES Mumbai lost navigation after taking heavy fire, 3 sister ships immediately formed a protective triangle around her, their overlapping shields creating a mobile fortress while engineering teams conducted repairs under active bombardment. When the frigate UES Lagos reported ammunition depletion, nearby vessels began risky close-approach maneuvers, transferring crew and supplies through docking tubes while plasma fire streaked around them. Ships that should have retreated to safe distances instead moved closer, using their hulls as shields for damaged comrades. Most disturbing of all, the human fleet fought with a coordination that seemed to transcend individual survival instincts. Captain Mitchell's voice crackled across all frequencies. All ships, Pattern Delta. We're going to hurt them before we go. Pattern Delta, the Council observers learned through horrified analysis, was humanity's tactical designation for coordinated sacrifice. Damaged ships would conduct ramming attacks while intact vessels provided covering fire and ensured maximum impact. Within 4 hours, 15 human vessels had been destroyed, but they had taken 12 Devourer bioships with them, losses that exceeded the enemy's casualties from the previous 50 encounters with emerging species combined. For the first time in their species' evolutionary history, the Devourers began to display something resembling tactical caution. Bioships that had operated with absolute confidence now moved in tighter formations, maintaining greater distances from human vessels, even breaking off attacks when human ships approached too closely. Dr. Blackwood's voice was barely a whisper as she spoke the words that would reshape galactic military doctrine. They're making the Devourers hesitate. On the surface of Kepler 442b, the human colonists had not been idle during the orbital battle. Instead of panicking or preparing for evacuation, they had transformed their peaceful settlements into fortress cities that would have impressed the galaxy's most paranoid military architects. Mining equipment became improvised artillery. Agricultural domes became bunkers with overlapping fields of fire. Children as young as 12 worked alongside their grandparents, carrying ammunition and medical supplies, their young faces set with determination that chilled Council observers to their cores. Commander Lisa Park, the colony's defense coordinator, stood atop the tallest communication tower in New Geneva, watching the battle in orbit through enhanced optical scopes. Her background was in hydroponics engineering, not military command, but like every human in the colony, she had volunteered for duties far beyond her training. All settlements, this is command, she broadcast to the 3 million souls scattered across the planet's surface. The fleet is buying us time with their lives. We will not waste their sacrifice. Make every shot count. Make every position cost them. Show these invaders that humanity doesn't yield our worlds easily. What Commander Park saw through her scopes: human farmers and teachers manning improvised weapons, families working together to fortify their homes, an entire civilization preparing to fight to the last breath, would haunt Council observers for the remainder of their extremely long lives, because they were witnessing something that had never existed in galactic history, an entire species that had chosen death over submission. By the 8th hour of engagement, the mathematics of warfare had become brutally clear. Only 19 human ships remained operational in the void above Kepler 442b, their hulls scarred by biolances and corrosive spores, their crews exhausted beyond the limits of human endurance. The UES Defiance herself had taken catastrophic damage, 7 hull breaches sealed with emergency patches, half her crew dead or wounded, her primary engines running on backup power that wouldn't last another hour. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on her bridge, blood streaming down her face from a head wound sustained when a Devourer neural disruptor had overloaded her command console. Her uniform was torn and stained, her hands shaking from a combination of blood loss and stimulant injections, but her voice remained steady as stone when her communications officer suggested the unthinkable. "Captain, we've received withdrawal authorization from Earth Command. We can fall back to the edge of the system Regroup with incoming reinforcements. Negative control. Mitchell's response was immediate, her brown eyes fixed on the tactical display showing devourer harvest pods descending like metallic rain toward the planet below. We hold the line. Those people trusted us to stand between them and extinction. We don't abandon that trust because the math got difficult. The devourers had paid a price that shocked Council observers across the galaxy. 34 bioships destroyed, casualties that exceeded their losses from the previous 3 centuries combined. But they were learning, evolving their tactics with the ruthless efficiency that had made them the galaxy's apex predators. Their remaining vessels now moved in coordinated clusters, using focused biolance strikes to disable human ships before they could attempt ramming attacks. Dr. Mirren Blackwood's compound eyes tracked the tactical developments with predatory fascination, her 4 arms inputting data faster than her analytical systems could process. The Devourers are adapting. They've modified their attack patterns to counter human close-quarters tactics. Probability of human fleet survival has dropped to 12.7% and declining. But across the galaxy, something unprecedented was happening. Council archives would later record this as the moment when galactic civilization began to fracture along ideological lines. The Arxilian Empire had activated their entire deep space monitoring network to observe the battle. The Stellar Confederacy was broadcasting live feeds to their military academies. Even the isolationist quantum gardens had emerged from their dimensional barriers to witness humanity's impossible stand. Species that had accepted Council protection for millennia were asking dangerous questions for the first time in their civilization's histories. What if survival wasn't worth any price? What if there were things more important than living another day? Dr. Zara Velkatha's crystalline form flickered with confusion as she monitored communication intercepts from across the galaxy. High Counselor, we're receiving requests for battle analysis from 47 different species. The Torvan Republic is asking for detailed tactical breakdowns. The Hive clusters want psychological profiles of human command personnel. High Counselor Thane Nine's gaseous form darkened with implications that stretched far beyond this single battle. They're studying them, learning from them. On Kepler 442b's surface, the first Devourer harvest pods made planetfall with the sound of thunder rolling across continents, instead of the usual quick consumption of a defenseless population. Civilians fleeing in panic while infrastructure collapsed around them, the biomechanical constructs met something they had never encountered before: organized, determined resistance. Commander Lisa Park's hastily trained militia opened fire with mining lasers reconfigured as anti-armor weapons. Families that had spent generations growing crops now coordinated artillery strikes with the precision of veteran soldiers. Most shocking of all to Council observers, when positions became untenable, the defenders didn't retreat. They initiated localized self-destruction protocols, denying the Devourers their prize while taking as many harvest pods as possible with them. The city of New Geneva became a fortress of fire and fury, its agricultural domes converted into bunkers where teachers and farmers held the line against creatures that had consumed countless worlds. Children carried ammunition through tunnels carved from living rock while their grandparents operated weapon systems with calm determination. Commander Park's final transmission was intercepted by Council monitoring stations across 3 sectors. New Geneva is overrun. Initiating Protocol 7. Tell Earth we remembered what it means to be human. Tell the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Protocol 7, Council analysts discovered with growing horror, was a planet-wide network of nuclear devices buried beneath every major settlement during the colony's initial construction, not as weapons of war, but as a final denial of resources to any force that might threaten human freedom. The planet died in synchronized nuclear fire that could be seen from neighboring star systems. 3 million human souls chose extinction over subjugation, and in their final moments they took 700 Devourer harvest pods with them. Losses that crippled the enemy's ground operations capability. In the aftermath, something impossible happened. The surviving Devourer swarm retreated to hyperspace. For the first time in their species' recorded history, they had withdrawn from a harvest operation without completing resource extraction. Captain Mitchell, now commanding 7 heavily damaged ships carrying fewer than 3,000 survivors, sent a simple message to the Council on all frequencies: colony lost. survivors returning to Earth for refit. Will return for recovery operations when able. 47 different species heard those final, impossible words echoing across the void. Will return. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the Kepler system's final transmissions. Representatives from across the galaxy gathering in the great amphitheater of Nexus Prime with unprecedented urgency. The massive chamber, carved from a single crystalline asteroid and suspended in the void between dimensions, had hosted countless debates over the millennia. None had carried the weight of what was about to unfold. Representatives of 47 species took their designated positions in the amphitherical structure, crystalline beings whose forms refracted light into impossible spectrums, energy entities that existed as pure consciousness wrapped in electromagnetic fields, mechanical consciousnesses housed in bodies of living metal, and biological species that represented every conceivable stage of evolution. Each had traveled through hyperspace, dimensional gates, or quantum tunnels to witness this moment. For the first time in Council history, none of them spoke for a full 10 minutes. They simply watched the battle recordings in stunned silence, their various sensory apparatus processing data that challenged fundamental assumptions about warfare, psychology, and the nature of civilized behavior itself. Dr. Mirren Blackwood finally broke the silence, her forearms trembling with emotions her species had never evolved to express. Her compound eyes, each lens processing different aspects of the tactical data, struggled to formulate analysis that made sense within existing paradigms. In my professional assessment, humanity has demonstrated 7 previously unknown tactical innovations during this engagement, she began, her voice carrying across the amphitheater through translation matrices that rendered her words in dozens of formats. Coordinated sacrifice as a primary strategy rather than a last resort. Ramming attacks as standard operational protocol. Complete civilian population integration into military defense structures. Nuclear denial of planetary resources to prevent enemy acquisition. Close-quarters combat preferences that contradict all survival instincts. She paused, her form shaking with implications. And most significantly, successful psychological warfare against a species previously believed to be immune to fear responses. High Counselor Thane 9's gaseous form pulsed slowly, colors shifting through spectrums that indicated deep contemplation mixed with growing alarm. Explain the psychological component in detail, Dr. Blackwood. The Devourers have operated on a simple, immutable principle for over 3 millennia. They represent the apex predator archetype, and all other species function as prey within the galactic ecosystem. Prey exhibits predictable behaviors, flight responses, submission protocols, or defensive posturing until overwhelming force breaks resistance. Dr. Blackwood manipulated holographic displays that showed Devourer retreat patterns, her analysis revealing data that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about interspecies dynamics. Humanity violated this fundamental assumption. Prey does not advance on predators. Prey does not sacrifice itself to inflict casualties. Most critically, prey does not make apex predators retreat through pure psychological pressure. Counselor Vex uncoiled his massive reptilian form, his ancient scales clicking against the crystalline amphitheater floor. His species had been among the Council's founding members, their civilization spanning 7 million years. Nothing in their extensive historical records had prepared them for this moment. The implications extend far beyond this single engagement, he hissed, his forked tongue tasting chemical signals that indicated anxiety from dozens of species simultaneously. If one species can resist the Devourers through aggressive determination rather than superior technology, what prevents other civilizations from questioning their dependency on Council protection? The question hung in the rarefied atmosphere of the chamber like a quantum poison, spreading through the assembled representatives with viral efficiency. The galaxy's entire political structure, refined over millions of years, was built on a simple assumption. Advanced species provided protection to primitive ones in exchange for resources, loyalty, and strategic advantage. If that assumption proved false, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, humanity's representative to the Council, sat in the observation gallery reserved for provisional members. Her black armband, worn in memory of Kepler 442b's 3 million dead, stood out starkly against her diplomatic uniform. When she finally spoke, her words carried across the chamber with quiet intensity. Honored counselors, humanity appreciates the Council's previous offer of protection during our recent crisis. We respectfully decline any future offers of the same nature. We will handle threats to human space ourselves. The amphitheater erupted in a cacophony of sounds, electromagnetic pulses, and quantum fluctuations as 47 species attempted to process the implications simultaneously. Dr. Zara Velkatha's crystalline form flickered rapidly, her species equivalent of hyperventilation. Counselor Vec's voice cut through the chaos. Handle future threats how? Ambassador Rodriguez? Elena's smile was cold and sharp as fractured glass, carrying within it the memory of 3 million souls who had chosen death over submission. By teaching apex predators what fear tastes like, counselor. By showing the galaxy that some prey bite back hard enough to leave scars. Her words would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come, marking the moment when the natural order began its inexorable collapse. 6 months later, the Devourers returned to human space with the confidence of apex predators who had learned from their previous encounter. Their bioships emerged from hyperspace at the edges of the Sol System, humanity's sacred cradle, expecting to find a broken species ready for submission after the devastating losses at Kepler 442b. Instead, they found something that defied every strategic calculation in their collective consciousness. They found a trap. Humanity's new fleet numbered over 300 ships, but these were not the hastily converted civilian vessels that had fought at Kepler. These were purpose-built instruments of war, designed with one singular doctrine: close-quarters combat against biomechanical opponents. Each ship bore scars of testing and refinement, their hulls marked with kill tallies that spoke of months spent hunting Devourer scout vessels across the galaxy's rim. The lead ship, the battlecruiser UES Never Forget, transmitted a message that would be recorded in the archives of every major galactic civilization. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell, commanding the Human Defense Fleet. You are not welcome in this system. Leave now, or we will demonstrate why humanity is no longer considered prey. Admiral Mitchell had been promoted after the Kepler engagement, her tactical innovations becoming the foundation of humanity's new military doctrine. The bridge around her was a testament to human engineering philosophy. Every system designed for maximum efficiency under combat conditions. Every crew member cross-trained to handle multiple responsibilities under fire. Council observers, now maintaining permanent monitoring stations throughout human space, watched as humanity unveiled what their military theorists had designated the complete warfare protocol. Unlike the desperate last stand at Kepler 442b, this was a coordinated campaign designed to inflict maximum psychological and physical damage on an enemy that had ruled the galaxy through terror for millennia. Dr. Mirren Blackwood, observing from the Council station orbiting Jupiter, could barely process what she was witnessing. They've weaponized every lesson from Kepler. Human ships are moving in hunting formations, predatory behavior patterns I've never seen from a prey species. They're not defending, they're actively hunting. The human fleet moved like wolves through space, targeting isolated biovessels with concentrated firepower before disappearing into the asteroid fields and sensor shadows they had spent months preparing. When damaged ships couldn't retreat, they didn't surrender. They accelerated toward the nearest enemy vessel, turning their death throes into weapons that carved through bio-armor with terrifying effectiveness. Nuclear mines, scattered throughout the system during 6 months of frantic preparation, detonated whenever Devourer bioships approached human colonies. But these weren't the desperate denial weapons of Kepler 442b. They were precisely calibrated to channel explosive force into directed energy beams that could cripple bioships without destroying valuable salvage. Most disturbing of all to Council observers, humanity had learned to hunt with cold calculation rather than desperate fury. They studied their enemies' behavioral patterns, identified psychological weaknesses, and exploited them with surgical precision. When Devourer bioships attempted their traditional fear-inducing displays, bioluminescent patterns that had terrorized countless species, human vessels responded by broadcasting recordings of their own. The death screams of bioships from Kepler played on frequencies that resonated through Devourer neural networks. The battle lasted 3 standard days, but the outcome was never in doubt. When the final engagement ended, the Devourer swarm had been reduced to fewer than 30 bioships, all of which fled into hyperspace carrying something their species had never experienced in 3 millennia of galactic dominance. Genuine, bone-deep terror. Admiral Mitchell's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy on all frequencies, ensuring that every spacefaring civilization would hear her words. Let this message reach every corner of the galaxy. Humanity remembers its dead. We learn from our defeats. We grow stronger with each challenge. And we never, ever forgive those who prey upon the innocent. The aftermath of humanity's second encounter with the Devourers sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. Within weeks, something unprecedented began occurring across the galaxy. The Torvan Republic, a species that had lived under Council protection for 2 millennia, formally requested human military advisors to help them develop independent defense capabilities. The Stellar Confederacy began developing ramming ships based on captured human technical specifications. Even the ancient Quantum Gardens, hermits who had avoided galactic politics for 10,000 years, sent a delegation to Earth requesting a formal alliance. Dr. Zara Velkatha's final report to the Council contained a single, devastating conclusion that would reshape galactic politics. Humanity has introduced a concept previously unknown to galactic civilization, the idea that species can transcend their designated ecological roles through sheer determination and tactical innovation. They have proven that prey can become predators, that the protected can become protectors, and that the observed can become the observers who judge their former superiors. High Counselor Thane, 9 read this report in his private chambers, his gaseous form darkening with each paragraph as the implications became clear. The galaxy's carefully maintained hierarchy, refined over millions of years, was crumbling, and at the center of the collapse were these impossible humans who refused to accept their assigned place in the natural order. He was still contemplating the magnitude of what was unfolding when the priority alert arrived from across the galaxy. The insectoid hive clusters, a client species for over 4 millennia, had just declared independence from Council protection and announced their intention to adopt human-style defensive protocols. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Crystalline Chorus was developing ramming ships, the Void Swimmers had begun aggressive military training, and the Peaceful Agrarian Collective was asking dangerous questions about why they needed protection from threats they had never been allowed to face. Council observers who had witnessed humanity's first war found that sleep, when their species required it, no longer came easily. In their dreams, they heard Admiral Mitchell's words echoing across the void like a prophecy. We never, ever forgive. And in the darkness between stars, as ancient powers trembled and new alliances formed, they realized with growing horror what humanity had truly accomplished. They hadn't just defeated the Devourers. They had taught the galaxy that the natural order was not immutable, that courage could triumph over overwhelming odds, and that sometimes the desperate defiance of a few could inspire the liberation of many. The age of Council dominance was ending in fire and revolution. The age of humanity, and the age of species who dared to follow their example, had begun.